Hello everyone, welcome along to Space Dave Live episode number 6. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So we'll start with the introductions. As always, my name is Dave, and with us tonight we have our loyal studio audience. Say hi everyone. So thank you guys for coming along and supporting the show tonight. And over in the back there we have Jess, who is keeping an eye on social media and all our technical issues. So I think we're pretty much under control tonight. So we're doing a few things a little bit differently tonight. So just bear with me while we go through a little bit of housekeeping to get started tonight. So the first thing is that we are broadcasting live on both YouTube and Facebook tonight, which is something that really didn't go very well last time we tried it. So we're hoping for better things tonight. As far as we can see, everything is going okay. So what we need is for you guys to just let us know, basically let us know if there's any real problems. So we don't need a million messages saying everything is fine, but if anything is going wrong, please do let us know. And as always, if I forget to turn my mic up and that sort of thing, I'm relying on you guys to jump on me and let me know what's happening. So there's that. So with the Facebook thing, to be honest, the Facebook thing doesn't generally work quite as well as the YouTube thing. We'll be keeping an eye on the live chat on both of them, so I can see the YouTube live chat here. Hi guys, Alan, John, Mike, thanks for joining in, guys. On the Facebook comments, I can't actually see them myself, so we are relying on Jess to keep an eye on the Facebook comments. So Jess over there will let us know if you guys are commenting on Facebook, but it is harder to keep track of those comments there. But we hope you guys can be involved, so we're just going to see how it goes, really, so hopefully everything will go okay. I don't think there's any other housekeeping stuff that we really needed to talk about tonight. So what we should do is get stuck straight into some things. Well, first of all, let's have a quick look at our program for tonight. So we'll do the introduction and bits and pieces, the competition to get started with. With the news tonight, the big news probably is the SpaceX anomaly that happened during the week. So we've had a little bit of a setback in the space program there. We'll talk about that, as well as some other commercial missions. There's a few things to talk about related to Mars tonight. And we've got lots of other news as well, things that we can talk about. In the night sky tonight, we are going to talk about the Southern Cross again. We talked about how to find it, where it is, and a little bit about how it moved a few weeks ago. Tonight, I want to talk just a little bit more about that to help you understand how the Southern Cross moves through the sky and what you're actually looking at there. Exciting news for all you flat earthers out there. We've got the New Zealand Flat Earth Conference coming up this weekend. So yeah, that's a big deal for everyone. I'm sure you're all quite worked up about that. Then we'll just have the competition results and the wrap up. So we'll see how that goes. But let's get things started with competition time. So tonight we're going to, for our competition, we're going to do something, talk about something that we don't talk very much about here, and that is science fiction. So we're normally about science fact here, or science theories and all sorts of things, but we don't really talk much about science fiction. But it is a big, important part of astronomy and space. So like many people who are into space, I got my start in science fiction. Heaps of astronomers that I meet, in fact, most of them, almost all of them, I think, really. Correct me if I'm wrong out there, anyone, but I reckon most of the astronomers I come across got their start through science fiction. For me, the first image I ever really remember, to be honest, was, I'm pretty sure I've got this right, it was this one here. I've got this image very clearly in my mind of sitting in my lounge with my mum, who's out there in the audience. Hi, Mum. This image, I'm pretty sure it was this one, came up on the TV, and I was just, wow, what's that all about? And the idea of these space adventures was just absolutely intriguing to me, and I've never looked back. I was just right into it. So this was 1973 that Star Trek, the animated series, came out, and so Star Trek was the first science fiction that I ever really remember. It was also, I'm pretty sure, the second thing I ever saw on television in colour. So colour television came to New Zealand in 1973. Like most people, we still had black and white television, but I went to a friend's birthday party, and they must have been wealthy because they had one of these flash new colour TVs, and Star Trek was on, and we all watched it, and it was just mesmerising. I'll never forget it. I even remember what episode it was. For all you original series Trekkies out there, it was Metamorphosis, the one with Zephram Cochrane in it, and it was just absolutely amazing. I just I've loved it. I've loved Star Trek ever since. I've followed it through all the highs and the many, many lows, because as we all know, Star Trek is somewhat up and down. But I like all sorts of science fiction, and I think it is a really good trigger. It's a good hook to get people into space and astronomy and science. So tonight's competition, which is where all of this is heading, is to do with science fiction. What I want you guys to do is post a message in the live chat, or you can email it, you can text, whatever, but just tell us which science fiction you like and why. So it can be any media, it can be films, TV series, books, comics, even games, I suppose, whatever, or it could be an author, or it could be something. Just say, I like such and such because such and such. So for me, Star Trek, it's pretty hard to just pin it down to one thing, but I might say I like Star Trek because it portrays an optimistic future for humans, or a positive future. It shows what we're capable of, or something like that. So see if you can summarize that. Tell us which science fiction you like and why. And everyone who enters the competition tonight will go in the draw to win this. This is something a little bit different tonight as well. So this is from our shop that's over in the background over there. We sell a lot of space stuff in the shop, but also other general science things and natural history, dinosaurs and stuff like that. So what we're giving away tonight, if you can see that, is this beautiful little box of natural gemstones for the budding geologist or someone who's interested in starting a geology or rock collection. It's a nice little collection of gemstones there. So we can post that out anywhere in the world. So get your entries in, and good luck. So that's the competition. What's next? We need to talk about some news, don't we? So we normally start the news section off with if there is anything to talk about at the Space Centre here, then we'll go on to talk about space news in general. So there's not a lot to talk about at the Space Centre, but it is the school holidays here at the moment. So it has been steady here. This was a shot from just earlier on today, a few hours ago. This is kind of what it looks like in the school holidays. People just sort of wandering around, enjoying themselves, some having a go on the virtual reality there. So to be honest, it hasn't been the greatest school holidays for us. We could do with a few more customers. So if you're looking for something to do over the next few days, we'd love to see you here, but it has been fairly steady. There's one other thing that I wanted to mention while we were talking about this. So one of the things that we do here is we sell telescopes, and in fact in the room right behind me you can kind of, I can't really see it very well, can you, but right in the background there, that is our telescope shop, but we also help people out with telescopes. So this was a guy, and sorry I didn't get your name, but a guy and his wife came in today with their telescope because they were having a bit of trouble getting it set up. So if, like most telescope owners, your telescope is at home and you're struggling to use it, don't be put off. That's really normal for people to get a telescope and then not be able to figure out how to use it. So feel free to bring it on in, and we're happy to have a look at it, help you get it set up, and give you some tips on how to use it. So we really enjoy doing that sort of thing, and I know that most of the telescopes in the world are under people's beds or hidden in wardrobes because people can't figure out how to use them. As I say, don't be put off. That's absolutely normal. You really need some help if you're new to telescopes. So I think that's all the news that we've really got from the Space Centre, which means that we should get on to talking about some general news in space. So I'm going to talk about this one first because this is my favourite news story of the whole night. And this is going back to last week. You remember this one? I'm getting upset about it, even thinking about it again now. So those nasty old people at Pepsi had this diabolical plan to put this enormous ad up in space, so we'd spend our night sky looking up at their advertisement. Oh, that's just so shocking, isn't it? This is a picture from the website of the Russian organization that is trying to make all of this happen. Now, I believe it was Rox Orange last week during the show actually chimed in and said she thought that they had cancelled this plan. So the good news is, yes, they have cancelled it. In fact, Pepsi is now saying, oh, no, we were never really that serious about it. We were just sort of thinking about it. So, yeah, whatever, Pepsi. But very happy to hear that they have cancelled that plan. But look, the fight is not over. These guys have invested an awful lot of money in this project. So even though Pepsi's not on board anymore, there's a lot of people that have invested millions of dollars in this plan, and we need to fight it. we need to fight it hard. So any company that is looking at spoiling our night sky with their nasty, tacky advertising, we need to make it stop. But we'll take that as a win. We'll take that as some good news tonight that at least Pepsi is not going ahead with their plan. One other quick follow-up. We have been following the poor old Beresheet lander, the Israeli private company that tried to land on the moon just recently. We already covered this in the last couple of weeks, but just a quick follow-up on that. This one crash landed. So that's the lander on the left that they were trying to land on the moon. The one on the right is the selfie that it took as it came in to land on the moon, but it ended up crash landing. And it turns out that the reason it did was that as it was coming in to land, there was a few things going a little bit wrong with this. I can't actually remember which system it was, but someone on the ground sent an updated command to the spacecraft to try and fix a couple of these little niggles that were happening, and that set off a series of events that ended up shutting down the main engine and crashing into the moon. So I can only imagine what it was like for the poor technician on the ground that had sent that command up that started all of that going, and ended up in the crash. So that was really bad news for them. But the good news is that it sounds like it was just a software issue. So there's no indication that there was actually a problem with the vehicle or the engine or anything itself. It was just a software thing that made it crash. So the Israelis are keen to try that again. Space IL, actually, I should emphasize that. It's not the Israeli government. It's just some a private company based in Israel, but they are going to try that again, so good on them. We wish them all the best with that, and it sounds quite promising, I think. Yeah, so we'll just see how that goes. Right, we need to move on to the big story of the week, which was not so flash, and that was the SpaceX anomaly. So I'm just looking at our viewers here. I think we've got a few new viewers tonight, so we're just going to do a quick recap. For those of you who are not familiar with SpaceX, it is a private space services company. It was started in 2002 by Elon Musk, and they provide launch services and other things to do with space. So what they've had going in the past is the Falcon 9 launch vehicle that you see there on the left. So yeah, that's the Falcon 9 rocket, and that can launch the capsules, if you can see up here, that they make themselves. That's the Dragon capsule, or they can put anything in it. So that bit at the top there, that's the payload, the thing that they're putting into space. The Falcon 9 is the rocket, the main thing underneath it, and right at the top there, that's the payload that's going into space. So they've had the Falcon 9 going for quite a while, and you'd call that an established vehicle by now, I would think. Excuse me, I'm just going to make a couple of quick adjustments here. Right, that'll do. So the Falcon Heavy, that's the one that we watched the launch of last week. Wasn't that spectacular? That was the awesome launch. Everything went right. It all went perfectly, and all three of the boosters came back down to land. One of them unfortunately fell into the ocean after it landed, but the whole thing was just absolutely beautiful. So that is SpaceX's heavy lift vehicle, and that's only flown twice now, but that's looking quite promising. They are also developing the BFR or Starship, or whatever you want to call it, the huge one on the right there. That's the one that's in the really early stages of development, and they've got a short version of it that they're testing at the moment called the Star Hopper, and we've also been talking about that in previous episodes. So those are the rockets that they've got. They also develop capsules, or the spacecraft that you actually want in space. If you look on the right hand side there at the top, that's the first initial Dragon capsule. So back over here on the Falcon 9, that thing at the top there, that is a Dragon capsule, as you see over here. So SpaceX developed that particular capsule, and the one that you see on the right at the top there, that is berthed to the International Space Station. So far, they've been using that capsule to send food and supplies to the space station, and that's been going really well. The next step is to have one of these capsules that is human rated, so they can send people up into space, and that's really a big part, obviously, of what they've been working towards, and it's a big step, as you can imagine, going from sending food and supplies, which isn't that bad if you lose it, to sending people, which is a whole different kettle of fish altogether. Now, that's we've been watching their human-rated version, the Crew Dragon or Dragon 2, the one that you see on the bottom right there. We've been watching the testing for that in recent times, and for the most part, it's been going really well. So let me just bring up a video here. let's just bear with me while we swap over to that. So what we're going to see here, first of all, that's the capsule there. So that's the Crew Dragon, the one that's supposed to take people in it. And what you're looking at there is a test of their launch abort system. We've been talking about that before. This is the system, so if the rocket launches and anything goes wrong with the main rocket as it's going up, those little rockets that you can see there will blast the capsule clear of all the trouble and they can land somewhere else safely. So let's just quickly see what that test looks like. And this has been tested quite a lot actually in the past, and it's been going really well. There was really no reason to think that there was going to be any problem with that. So it's a cool looking thing when it's going, isn't it? It looks awesome. This is a test from the pad there. You can see it launching up. Shoo-hoo, away it goes. So this is what would happen. It would be thrown clear of any trouble. I imagine that would be quite a ride if you were in that capsule there. So as I say, these are some tests from a little while ago, and that part of it's all been going really well. Now this one here, you may remember Ripley. You remember Ripley? We've been watching that one. That was the mission a few weeks ago. So the same capsule had a test that didn't have any people on it, but it was a full mock-up, and Ripley went to the space station and sort of went through the whole process, including the landing that we're seeing here. And so that was the whole thing: launch, arrive at the space station, pretend that the astronaut gets in and out, come back down to Earth, splash land in the ocean. This one is designed to come back down and land in the ocean, and you can see the recovery vehicles out there going out there to get it. And what happens is that they have the ship that goes out there. You can see the capsule just bobbing around in the water. So this is all perfectly normal. We watched this test on a show a few weeks ago. Everything went really well. They recovered it properly. So you can see the capsule there. Excuse the video quality here. This was recorded from a live transmission, so it was a bit dodgy. You can see that the capsule's got some burning on there from re-entry, but this all just went perfectly well. So we were really happy with this, and so after this, the next step was to do the final launch abort tests, and we've talked about that as well. So the next test that was supposed to be coming up soon was to do the whole launch sequence, but instead of with this mission here, they went to the space station and basically tested out a successful mission all the way through. The final test was to test if something went wrong. So they actually launch the whole thing up, they simulate something going wrong with the rocket, and bring in the launch abort system to throw the capsule clear and back down again. So that's the last test that we were waiting for, and that was due to go within the next couple of months. I can't remember exactly when, but before then there was just a few more tests that SpaceX wanted to do on the ground before they had that final test there. So this capsule is designed to be reusable, so they actually took this very capsule, the one that you're looking at here, that came back from the space station, and they were using that one to do just some tests on the ground, to test the engines out, and to make sure it was ready for that final launch abort test. So we didn't really expect anything to go wrong with that, to be honest. As I said before, they've done lots of tests on the launch abort system and those engines in particular, so it really should have gone okay. Unfortunately, it didn't, and according to the official press release from SpaceX, the initial tests completed successfully, but the final test resulted in an anomaly on the test stand. So there's that word, anomaly. We do not like that word. In fact, if you remember last week when we watched the Falcon Heavy launch, coincidentally I mentioned that word nominal. We like the word nominal, and whenever they're saying things are nominal, then that means normal, and everything is going okay. Anominal or anomaly means it is not going okay. So it's a little bit of an understatement to say it was an anomaly, really. I've got a terrible quality video here. This was a leaked video, and it's about the only thing we really have. So it's very hard to see what we're looking at there, but the capsule is this bit here. So very blurry. It was taken on someone's phone, and this is not an official video, but it's the only thing that we've really got to go on so far. So watch closely here, because if you blink, you'll miss it. So this is what was happening on the test stand when they were testing those rockets that we were just looking at before. So that's not supposed to happen, what you just saw there. That is what we call in the space industry an anomaly. So quite a bad anomaly, really, but anomalies generally are. When you hear of an anomaly in a space mission, it really means things have gone pear-shaped quite badly. So yeah, not good at all. So what does all of this mean? Well, first of all, it's interesting that we really haven't had, apart from the press release that came out, or the statement that came out immediately after the failure, we've had absolutely nothing from SpaceX. That's unusual. To their credit, SpaceX is normally very upfront with any information. So you know what Elon Musk is like on Twitter. He's probably second only to Donald Trump in how prolific he is with his tweets. But we've heard nothing since then. So that's a little bit worrying. The fact that this has happened at all is worrying, so close to the final tests, really. These are sort of supposed to be just wrapping up tests, really. Things shouldn't be going that badly wrong at this stage. And when you think that there are supposed to be people inside that thing, there was definitely going to be a delay. There's no way around that. Even just to investigate it and find out what went wrong, even to run those same tests again, there'll have to be some kind of delay. How much? We just don't know, because we've got nothing to go on. If you look back at that video, you can see that the explosion happened, well, the rockets weren't firing at the time it happened, which to me indicates that it was likely to have been while they were filling up the tanks, or something else was happening. Maybe it became overpressurized, maybe some of the plumbing gave out. I'm not exactly sure, so we're really not too sure what's going on there. So it's really just a game of wait and see. I'm really hoping that we would have something out within the next week or so. NASA has come out with a statement really just acknowledging it and said we're working very closely with our partners. It's just a generic statement. So we are all quite in the dark. I was hoping that we would have some more news for you by now. So to be honest, that's probably about all we've got. But look, if anyone else out there has seen anything else or got any more news, please pitch in with it. I had another look around just a couple of hours ago and I can't find anything else at all. SpaceX's Twitter feed, their website, everything is completely silent on the whole thing. So this is worrying, because SpaceX is really one of the only one of two options for getting the American human spaceflight going again, at least to low Earth orbit, back to the space station and that sort of thing. So we've got NASA's capsule that they're working on. We've talked a lot about that in the past with the SLS and everything, but that's not ready to go. Boeing is the other one, the other company that is developing a capsule, very similar to what we've just seen here. But as it happens, they've had a setback, something to do with their launch abort system as well. So things are not looking that flash right now. I can't see that we're going to get any human tests, any human space flights this year. So that will be annoying NASA and Jim Bridenstine. You remember how we've been talking about him really wanting to get back into space, be going back to the moon and that sort of thing. So this is quite a serious setback. I'm upset about it. I'm smiling, but I'm crying on the inside, because this is no good. Anyway, I wish we had more news or more information, but I'm afraid we don't. In the meantime, I've just had a note saying that we've got a question on Facebook. Now, since I can't see that myself, we'll cut over to Jess. What's happening over there on the Facebook land, Jess?
Someone was wondering how they plan on cleaning the capsule if it's going to be used again.
Right, it doesn't look too flash, does it? It looks pretty dirty. Where's it? I think I might have lost our picture of it. Yeah. To be honest, I don't know the answer to that one. I'm pretty sure that on the outside they practically remove the outer layer. Look, the short answer is I don't really know, and I don't want to give you any false information. So if anyone wants to let me know, I'm just trying to think back. My memory's failing on me, because I did actually read about this only a few weeks ago, exactly how they're doing that. But it looks a mess, doesn't it, when it comes back? It looks like you wouldn't be able to refurbish it, but apparently they can do it very quickly. The idea is a very quick turnaround. Now, on that note, this one did land in the ocean, of course, so it's possible that at least part of the reason that they've had this problem was something to do with it landing in the ocean. So who knows? I guess I should have pointed out that there's a few possibilities here. If it was something really simple, very unusual, something like a software error that happened with the Beresheet thing, or something that's easily identifiable and easily fixed, then it could be just a delay of a month or two. That doesn't seem that likely to me. If I had to put money on it, I'd say it's something a little more serious. If it turns out to be a problem with the manufacturing of some part of it, then that's a bigger problem, and that will take much longer because they're going to have to go back and revisit their manufacturing process. If it's a problem with the actual design of the spacecraft, that's probably the worst case of all, because then you've actually got to go right back to the drawing board, and depending on which part of the system it is, if you're redesigning something, that takes you right back to the beginning. So that would be really, really bad. So I certainly hope it's not that bad. Anyway, sorry I didn't really have a good answer to that one. If we remember, we will try and get a better answer for next week if no one else has come up with one before them. So let's just have a quick look at our YouTube. Comments about the flat earth, yeah, I like that. Flash Gordon, thanks Jenny. Yeah, I remember Flash Gordon too, eh? Cool, eh? Yeah, Flash Gordon was very influential too, eh? Alan likes Doctor Who because the idea of spaceship and a British phone box. Yes, good on you. Marie Johnson points out the rapid unscheduled disassembly, which is one of the terms that they use for what we just saw there with that anomaly. Elon is quite fond of these funny terms, a rapid unscheduled disassembly. I've always liked that one. Thanks, Marie. What else have we got here? Maybe they burnt a wire that caused the explosion. Yeah, okay, that could be. Thanks, LolGaming53. Yeah, like we're saying, it could be something to do with what happened as it came back down and went into the ocean and stuff. Who knows? Hopefully we will find out before too long. Anyway, just before we leave SpaceX, yeah, that's where we were up to. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention. So SpaceX, I mentioned that they are involved in the launch rockets, the capsules to get stuff up into space. There's one other project that they've got going which is interesting, this Starlink satellite constellation. Now, a constellation used in this context is nothing to do with stars. A satellite constellation is just a group of stars in some sort of synchronized orbit together around the Earth. And so SpaceX is building this new internet service satellite constellation where they eventually hope to have, believe it or not, up to 12,000 satellites up in space, providing internet coverage around the world. That's not as bad. You know, when you think about that number of satellites, I'm picking a lot of you are thinking, oh, space junk, bad. But as long as they've got a way to bring them back down afterwards, it's not really that bad. It's dead satellites that we're more worried about. But they are planning to have the first launch possibly in May this year. And have regular launches over the coming years. So that's quite a big project, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. Now, let's just think, I might just skip a couple of things there actually. So, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just quickly show you this graphic that I've just started working on. This is a graphic that shows the intention here is to show how all the main players in the commercial space business are working. As you can see, it's completely unfinished. I really have only just started it. But the point here, and the reason I'm showing you this, is to show you that SpaceX is one commercial company, and there's a lot of players in the aerospace industry. So SpaceX is pretty much doing their own thing. They have contracts with NASA and lots of commercial companies. Then we've got some of these others. Next to it, you've got the United Launch Alliance, which is a joint project between Boeing and Lockheed Martin, two very big players. Next to that, you've got a whole bunch of ones, and I forget how all of these ones are connected to each other. Because some of them buy other ones and sell them. There's connections between all of these ones, but to be honest, I lose track of exactly how they're all connected. But that includes Richard Branson's Spaceship One and Spaceship Two. That's been really well covered in the media. The Strato launch, that huge plane thing that we saw last week. We watched the video of that. And a bunch of others in there. Blue Origin is one that I'll mention again just in a moment. They're not really doing anything commercial yet, but they are ones to watch. Once Blue Origin starts, once they've finished their testing phase and really start launching, Blue Origin, I think, is going to be a serious competitor to SpaceX. Don't worry about X-Core down there, we'll talk about them some other time. And of course there's New Zealand's Rocket Lab, which is also a launch service provider. nowhere near in the league of SpaceX. Rocket Lab is using much smaller launch vehicles, and they're going for a niche market for small satellites and things like that. But very much a player. It's really interesting to see how Rocket Lab is being talked about alongside all of these other really big, well-established companies that have been around a long time. So Rocket Lab is really making a difference in the industry. They're really making their presence felt. So big fan of Rocket Lab. Okay, Blue Origin that I've just talked about. Blue Origin, this is Jeff Bezos' company from Amazon, and I guess the news for them this week is that they have or will be taking over one of NASA's test stands, and they are going to be testing their new rockets there. So again, they're not really doing anything yet, but gee, their stuff is looking good. So we'll be keeping an eye on them in the months ahead, because I expect them to actually be starting some commercial flights within the next year or so. So that's looking really promising. Right, another thing that I wanted to talk about, NASA has selected SpaceX to provide launch services for the DART mission. Excuse me while I grab a quick drink. This is an interesting mission. Excuse me. As you may be able to see there, DART stands for Double Asteroid Redirect Mission. The reason that this is interesting and important is that this is a mission to figure out how to redirect an asteroid, particularly if it's on its way to Earth. So of course that's one of the big threats from space. There's a bunch of things of threats from space. The universe is trying to kill us in many ways, and one of them is with an asteroid. So what we really want to do is we want to be able to identify an asteroid that's on the way to hitting us, and sending something out there to stop it or deflect it or do something. Now it turns out that sending Bruce Willis and all his friends is not a great idea. Blowing up an asteroid is probably not a great idea. We certainly don't want to nuke it, because if you do that, all that means is that instead of one large asteroid, you've got 1 million radioactive asteroids hitting Earth. So we don't really want to do that. The plan with this one is to just send it out to an asteroid and hit the asteroid. So they're going to smash one of these little spacecraft into the asteroid and just adjust its orbit or its trajectory just a little wee bit. So let me show you just a quick animated video here. This is not actually the asteroid that it's going to, but it's a very similar one that I found. So it's actually a binary asteroid system. That's the main asteroid in the middle, and what you would call a moonlet, or a very small moon, just going around that asteroid. So the plan with this mission is to actually go out to this asteroid and hit the little moonlet and just adjust its orbit just very slightly, and then we'll be able to keep track of it from Earth to see how much it has adjusted. So the plan, of course, is to see, does this work, and is this a viable option? So if we actually see an asteroid that's going to hit us, that we will be able to do something about it. So the asteroid is called Didymos, and I believe it orbits between the orbits of Earth and Mars, and has been identified as a potential threat to Earth. I don't think a serious one, but it is a potential threat. So I think this is a really interesting mission, and we definitely want to keep a really close eye on this one. So it's due to launch sometime next year on a SpaceX vehicle. So that's definitely a really interesting one to keep an eye on. Now I'm thinking that our time is moving on here, and we should probably just quickly mention our competition again, shouldn't we? So I'll just hold it there for a sec. For those of you who have just joined us, our competition tonight is to do with science fiction. What we need you to do is we need you to put a message in the live chat or through any of the means down there below, telling us which science fiction you like and why. Just briefly, you don't have to go into lots of details, and you will go in the draw to win our prize tonight, which is a little box full of gemstones. Quite nice. Okay, so does anyone out there in our live audience have any comments or questions at this stage? Everyone still awake? Okay, good on you. Well, let's carry on then, shall we? So where were we up to? We want to talk about a couple of things to do with Mars. Now, you remember this one, Mars Insight. This is just a very quick update, well, sort of a non-update really. So this is the lander that is on Mars at the moment. You may recall that the drill that you can see down there on the CGI image, they started drilling in and it got stuck. This is an actual image from the lander. There's the drill thing down there. It's supposed to be drilling down into the ground, but it got stuck. It had only got about 40 centimeters, or not even that actually. I think it got about 30 centimeters into the ground, and supposed to go at least 5 meters. And the bad news is that they have not yet been able to figure out why it's not working. So it's got stuck. There's not supposed to be any rocks or anything under the ground. So unfortunately, it's starting to look a little bit dire for that particular experiment. But it's not, I mean, it's bad, of course, but it's not like the whole mission is in jeopardy. It's doing a whole bunch of other things as well, but that's just one of the instruments that I think we're getting less optimistic that they'll be able to sort that one out. So that's a bit of a shame, but we'll keep an eye on it. While we're talking about Mars, you remember we talked about methane on Mars. Was it last week? I think it was last week. But there's been a twist to the story, so we need to update this one. The story was that Curiosity, the rover that's been on Mars since about 2012, detected some methane on Mars in about 2013. Sometime, or just recently, Mars Express, which is a European spacecraft, confirmed, it went back through its data and confirmed that reading of methane on Mars. So the news that we had was that's really cool. We've confirmed that methane is there. So because it's been detected with both of those different spacecraft, one on the ground, one actually out in space, that we can take that as a confirmation that there really is methane there. And we talked about why that's important and why it could possibly be an indicator of life. It could just be geology, but it could be an indicator of life. So we were quite happy about that. The twist is that there's another spacecraft called the Trace Gas Orbiter. This is a collaboration between the European Space Agency and Roscosmos. So just going back a step, what we've got there is our history of detections of methane on Mars. So the first one was in 2003 when we detected it using telescopes here on Earth. Then we had the one from Curiosity. It's been picking up occasional detections of methane since about 2012. The European Space Agency confirmed supposedly that in 2013 that particular reading was real. However, the Trace Gas Orbiter that was sent to Mars specifically to look for trace gases in the atmosphere has been looking since 2018 and has not been able to find any methane at all. So, wow, where does that leave us? That's kind of confusing really, because with those two earlier detections, you would pretty much take that as confirmation. It's very unlikely that you would get such different spacecraft both confirming methane, but then this other one has not found any at all. So, look, I've got a couple of quotes here to give a couple of different perspectives on it. The one at the top is one of the scientists from the Trace Gas Orbiter's mission, who says the failure to find the gas suggests that an unknown process is scrubbing much of it from the atmosphere. So he's suggesting that the methane is there, but for some reason that we don't understand, it's disappearing. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's hard to say, but just for a different perspective on that, one of NASA's scientists has previously said, "I've never seen a convincing detection of indigenous methane on Mars, and I don't believe I ever will." So the whole thing about methane on Mars is a little bit controversial, I guess. Not everyone thinks that methane has actually even been detected at all, and not everyone thinks that it's really much of an indicator of life. Some people sort of lean more towards it looking like life. To be honest, I think probably most are leaning more towards it just being geological. But in any case, the whole thing is up in the air. We don't know what's happening with the methane on Mars. And this is probably a good example of the difference between sending robots and humans. So, of course, it's much easier, much cheaper to send robots out there to do all of the work. We can still see you, Jess. So there's good effort, but so, never mind. Sorry about that. Anyway, I didn't mean to embarrass you, Jess. It's all in good fun. You're doing a great job back there. Anyway, so if we had humans on Mars, we could probably resolve this whole thing really quickly and easily. So I guess that's the trade-off. You send robots out there, but they can only do so much. And to be honest, I don't actually see the issue of methane on Mars being resolved anytime soon. So. Righto, a couple of other quick things to talk about with Mars. Actually, maybe just one, I think. No, two. This one here is Mars's 2020 mission. So You may recognize this as looking very similar to the Curiosity rover that's already on Mars, but this is the one that's due to go to head off in 2020, and it's the same kind of basic design that you can see there. By the way, that's about the size of a small car, I guess. But it's going to have a whole lot of different instruments on it. So that's all looking really good. One of the really cool things that's going to go on this mission is the Mars helicopter. I love this little thing. So the idea with this one is that this is actually attached to the rover. I think it's underneath it actually when it lands there. But the idea with this one is that it will fly for a couple of minutes each day and we'll be able to go out and do some scouting around. So it can go up and have a look around, find out what the terrain's doing and track a good path for the rover to go along. So yeah, I think that's going to be really awesome. That'll be the first flying thing we've had on Mars, won't it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we haven't had anything flying on Mars yet, but it's been something that's been talked about for a very long time. So that's where that is, but I'm going to show you just a very short time-lapse video here. This is in, hang on, this is in NASA's JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab in California. In one of their high bays there. That thing in the middle is actually the spacecraft, is the Mars 2020 spacecraft getting ready. So this is one of their clean rooms there. So just a quick time lapse here. You can kind of see it being put together. So this is the stacking where they're getting everything together. They flip it over there so you can see the underside of it. So it's kind of getting into its last stages of preparation and getting ready. So that's all looking really good. I can't wait for that one to go, and we'll be watching the launch of that hopefully next year. Just thinking how our time is going. I think we have got time to perhaps just fit in one other quick video here. Look, I'm going to leave the audio down for this one because the audio didn't really add much to it. NASA has been running a competition to design a 3D printed Mars habitat. The idea is that they want to figure out how to do a habitat on Mars to house people, but made from stuff on Mars. So the competition is all about designing a system, the whole system, to go to Mars, to extract materials that you can actually find on Mars and build some kind of habitat. And it's got to be able to do a whole lot of things. It's got to be able to protect from the radiation. It's got to obviously have enough room to do all the various things that you need to do. So this is the winning competition. They have announced the winner. It's an interesting looking one. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this design, but it's really cool. I love it. Now, if you want to watch the whole video with audio and also watch the ones that came in second and third, I've got them in the description on the YouTube page. I should have mentioned that before actually. On our on the page for this video on YouTube, we're now able to upload descriptions and links before we actually go live. So there's a few links related to the news stories that we've been talking about there, including a page where you can go and learn more about these Mars habitats. The other ones are really neat as well. So I think what a lot of people don't realize about going to live on Mars is that the radiation is a really serious problem on Mars. And when you go outside in your spacesuit on Mars, you are effectively not protected from the radiation at all. And that's no good. So you're actually going to need a habitat that is well protected from the radiation, and you're going to be spending, I think, most of your life on Mars inside the habitat. So it's not all going to be about exploring around on Mars. You really need a habitat that's actually going to be comfortable to live in. And you're going to be able to need to expand it and build it. So as much as I would love to go and live on Mars, I'd be off tomorrow if I could. The real downer about living on Mars is that you're not going to be able to spend that much time outside. In fact, I've seen estimates that say if you want to live for more than a few years, you really should only be going outside for not much more than a few hours per week. So that's pretty nasty, eh? Being cooped up inside the whole time. So you really want a good habitat. So this one is really intriguing. I recommend that you go and have a look at it because they've done some really amazing research and engineering work on figuring out how this whole thing works. Okay, look, I tell you what, I might just skip a couple of quick things here, and I think we might, actually, you know what, I'll quickly just mention one thing that has come up on the news. And you remember this one here? This was the weird shaped object that came through our solar system back in 2017, but it took a while to figure out that it actually came from another solar system. So that was the first thing that we'd really sort of confirmed. I think it's close enough to confirmation that it came from outside our solar system, passing through ours. Well, I saw another paper that's just been released, or I just came across it, at least just recently. This is the first, they're calling it a confirmed detection, I think, of a meteor, another object from another solar system. So look, if you're interested in this, the link is in the description. So essentially what that's all about is a new way of determining if something has originated within our solar system or outside our solar system, and they are basically using its velocity, its trajectory, to say that couldn't really have come from anywhere in our solar system. It's traveling at a speed and an angle such that it must have come from outside the solar system. So it's a bit heavy reading, just reading the academic paper there, but it is really interesting, and it seems to be opening up a new area of research into things that have come from outside our solar system. So if you're into that, go and check out the link. Right, we always finish off the news with a little bit about fake news, and I've changed the heading to say misleading headlines and clickbait, because that's usually what it's mostly about. And I've only got one quick thing to talk about this week, and that was this story here, which was presented with essentially that same headline on just about every news outlet I saw. Astronomers have spotted the universe's first molecule. Now I'm picking, if you don't know much about space or how science reporting works and things, you're going to look at that and think, literally, the first molecule that existed in the universe. Look, that's how I read it. What do you guys reckon? Is that how you would have read it out there? Yeah, everyone's nodding. So that's not what happened, of course. They haven't found literally the first molecule that ever existed in the universe. I mean, that's just not something that can be done. So that's pretty typical of this kind of reporting. There is genuine, interesting science behind it. And again, here's a link to the actual academic paper if you want to read it. The link's in the description. So in short, it's helium hydride, which is a molecule that we don't normally expect to find in nature, but it was predicted. It's part of the Big Bang theory, or that whole idea that these molecules should have existed very early. In fact, they should have been perhaps the first molecules that existed in the universe, and they have found some examples of that kind of molecule, which is quite different to saying that they found the actual first molecule. I should just do a quick shout out to Fraser Kane and the team at Universe Today. If you're space fans, you may well have come across Fraser and his team. They do a lot of good work. They were the only one I saw that actually nailed the headline. I can't remember what they said, but they actually did get it right. So universetoday.com, a great source of information, and they did well there. So that's about all the news that we wanted to get through. Let's just very quickly go back over our competition. Again, if you've just joined us, our competition tonight, you have to tell us what you like in the world of science fiction. I like which kind of science fiction, or which author, or whatever it is you like, because, and with a very quick reason for telling us why you like that thing. Righto, so let's keep moving things along, because I wanted to talk. Sorry, do we have a question in the audience over there? No, someone's just having a stretch. I was going to cut straight to you then, but I thought I'd better not. So what we're going to do now is we just take a few minutes to talk quickly about what is happening in the night sky. So we are looking at Stellarium, our planetarium software. Just excuse me for one moment. This is the software that we use to see what's happening in the night sky. Very popular with astronomers. It's free. Just go and Google it, Stellarium, and download it. It's extremely useful. So if we have a look at what's happening outside right now, you will see that, hang on, the moon won't be up yet. So the moon will be coming up over there later on tonight, but now it's out of the evening sky, at least for the early part of the evening, so that makes it a lot easier to see other stuff out there. Now, if we actually just zap forward a little bit, what I'll do is I'll just bring up our date and time window there. So if we just go forward, we can see there, we mentioned this last week, that's a bit before 9 o'clock now by the looks of it, that Jupiter is coming up over there in the east, and there's the moon. So the moon's coming up a little bit later. Once the moon comes up, it gets harder to see everything else, but the moon and Jupiter are looking nice over there in the east. So that's just a little bit before 10 o'clock tonight. Probably 10 o'clock would be a good time to see it. So I think they'll be looking quite nice over there. But if we go back to right now, what I wanted to quickly talk about tonight was the Southern Cross. So let's go right back around Oh, I've gone the wrong way here, haven't I? Go back round to south. Now we mentioned briefly a while ago looking at the Southern Cross. So there's the Southern Cross up the top here. There's the two pointers, the two bright stars that are pointing to the top of the Southern Cross. The Southern Cross is visible from New Zealand on any clear night of the year, which is one reason that it's a good idea when you're learning the night sky from where we are to start with the Southern Cross. I always recommend that because it's always visible. Unlike a lot of the other stars, perhaps most of them, that are only visible at different times of the year and will be in different places. The Southern Cross is always more or less south and you can always see it, but it's not always the same. Right now, if I go outside and I have a look at it, it's kind of the right way up. But as we mentioned last week, or no, whenever it was, a couple of weeks ago, it rotates. So I've sped up time there, and you can see going through the night, it is turning around like the hands of a clock. And that's about all as far as we got last time. So I just want to expand on that a little bit tonight and talk about exactly what's going on. And I think we have got a few minutes to talk about that. So let me just stop that time and take it back to right now, because I want to show you something else. So let me just grab a prop over here and we just put this together. So we've got a little Earth over here. Let me just insert my screwdriver in there. So that's us. The Earth is rotating around and around like this. So where we are down here in New Zealand, we can see all the stars that are down in that direction, sort of out here. Up here in the north, they can see all the stars that are up there. Now the Earth rotates or orbits around the sun, kind of like this. It's a little bit tilted, but let's just say it's going around and around like this. And as it goes around, it is rotating around like this as it goes around the sun. So because it's always pointing sort of more or less the same way, those stars that are visible from the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, you're sort of seeing the same things. It never goes like this. We never get to see the stars that are way up there. The people up here never get to see the Southern Cross because it's down there. So I wanted to talk about why the Southern Cross moves in that circle around the sky. Let me just go back to Stellarium actually. There's a couple of things that you can do on this program to help illustrate this. One of them is to show a couple of grid patterns. So one grid pattern that we use to sort of show coordinates and things in the sky is like this. The zenith is right overhead and it just sort of shows you all around there. Now that particular grid you might use, for example, with a telescope where you want to find out where something is in the sky relative to where you are. That's not the one we're interested in tonight. We want to look at the equatorial grid. Thanks, Jess. What you're seeing there is the equatorial grid in the sky, and you'll see here is the Southern Cross over there. And when I talked about the Southern Cross rotating, let's just speed up time and we'll watch it rotate again. So you can see it's actually going around that point in the sky. And it actually works a little bit like a 24-hour clock, roughly 24 hours. It will go around in close to 24 hours in a big circle around there, around that point in the middle. That point is called the South Celestial Pole. And what we are looking at there, let me just go back to my prop over here. So as I said, the Earth is rotating around like this. For this discussion, just ignore the fact, I think, that it's orbiting around the sun. We don't need to worry about that at the moment, and we just talk about the rotation. So if the Earth is rotating around and around like this, you imagine that you are somewhere down here south, looking at all the stars down there. If we're rotating around this way, the stars, which are essentially fixed from our point of view, will appear to be rotating around in the other way. It's actually us going around this way, making the stars down there look like they are going around that way. If you imagine this line through the axis of the Earth like this, straight out from the top, that's the North Pole. The stars in the imaginary sphere around the Earth, we would call that the North Celestial Pole. North Pole on Earth, North Celestial Pole is a line straight up. Straight down from here into that sphere is the South Celestial Pole. That's what we were looking at on Stellarium over here. That point in the middle, that is the South Celestial Pole. That's right directly south from the axis of the Earth. As we rotate around like this, it makes all the stars look like they are rotating or appear to rotate in that direction. They're all still there during the daytime, of course. It's all still happening. We just can't see it during the day. There we go at night again. In fact, if we turn the atmosphere off, you can see this is daytime without the atmosphere. It's all rotating around, so it goes around and around and around. So that's why the Southern Cross appears to be rotating as it does. Let's go back to right now. So if we take the grid away, and when you watch the Southern Cross, when you go outside at night, it will be somewhere in that circle. But because it does change a little bit each night, we don't have time to talk about exactly why that is tonight. Maybe we'll get back to that some other time. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of why the Southern Cross is going around and around in that circle. So I'm hoping that what I just said there makes any sense. Nod or shake your head if you think, okay, there's some good feedback. Thank you guys, it's great having the audience here. So right, we have a question on Facebook. Thank you, Jess. On YouTube. Oh, sorry, am I looking at the wrong? Oh, I've got too many notes here. I've got a question on YouTube. Sorry about that, Jess. Thank you for keeping an eye on me tonight. Right, so I've been forgetting to keep an eye on the live chat, haven't I? So yeah, we've got a few comments there, including some answers to the competition. Mike likes Arthur C. Clarke. Actually, he was one of my favourite authors. I think he was my favourite author. Again, I'm looking at my mum to confirm this, but I loved Arthur C. Clarke when I was growing up. Righto, take your pill, Dave. Right, hang on, which is the question that I'm looking for here? Can you read it out, Jess? I might not be able to see it.
Why are the stars closest to the sun usually first seen at night?
Okay, stars closest to the sun first seen at night. Could be, actually. I think so. Yeah, if I understand that question correctly, so we're looking at the sun. Actually, let's just go back over to stellarium, shall we? If we go, where are we? So this is us now. So if we go back in time a little bit, so stellarium's great for this. You can go forward or backward in time. Those things that you just see whizzing across there would be satellites. So if we go back to when, I turned the atmosphere off, didn't I? So if we go forward and we start, I can't quite see what I'm doing here, and you just see the sun has set and you'll see the very first stars start to come out, and if I understand your question correctly, which ones are the first ones that start to appear? In fact, we're probably not going to see any out there. Mars is over there somewhere, but I'm picking that you're actually seeing planets. They do tend to be, if there are planets in the sky to see, they will tend to come out before the stars. So Mars, Venus, definitely, Jupiter and Saturn are the first things that you will tend to see if they are in the sky. And basically they're just brighter. So they cut out, they're the ones that are visible earliest. And really, I don't think there's any other answer to that, unless anyone's got anything else to add to that, that it really just is the brightest ones that you see. So I'm thinking that, if you looked, hang on, where's the sun? The sun's over there, of course. As the sun sets, let's just see what stellarium shows us. If we actually zoom all the way out, and we'll watch the sun set, and we'll see which ones stellarium thinks are going to be the first ones to come up tonight. It's a little bit hard for me to see here. So, it's suddenly getting dark. So there's, so Sirius, definitely Sirius would be one of the first ones that you would expect to see. So that's the, after the sun is the brightest star in the sky from our point of view, and a few others there. The Southern Cross normally comes out pretty quickly, but if you look over here, see the stars in Orion over there, they will tend to come out pretty quickly as well, as soon as it starts getting dark. So anyway, I think that's about all I can say about that. So Jay Dreamers, let's be nice. You're a good guy. Am I being nice? I think I'm being nice. I'm a pretty nice guy, aren't I? But thank you for keeping me on track. Am I being nice to everyone? I think I'm being nice to everyone tonight, eh? Sometimes I do get a little bit angry. Actually, I didn't have a rant tonight, did I? I'm sorry to disappoint everyone, but one of the things that we do here is a little segment called Dave Has a Rant, where I get all upset and Funnily enough, after I think our first episode, I said, oh look, there's not going to be something that upsets me every week. I'll do the rant maybe once a month or something, because there's just not that many things that upset me. And the universe said, challenge accepted, and something has been getting up my nose every week since. So, but not tonight. So tonight, everything's been much more relaxed. So look, it's almost 8 o'clock. We really need to be winding things up here. But I did say that I would, in our Everything is Fake segment, we'll make it pretty quick now. It is indeed the Flat Earth Conference here in New Zealand this weekend in Auckland. So I actually wish I was going to this. I would love to go to it, but we're open here at the Space Centre and it's school holidays and I need to make some money. So I won't be going there. But if you want to find them, the link is in the description. I would actually love if someone could go along there and just find out what goes on, maybe take a few photos and report back to us. Seriously, I would love to know how it went and how many people went along and whatnot. It's a little bit difficult to read their website there, but I thought I would just quickly point out that these two guys are some of the important speakers there, Robbie Davidson and Mark Sargent, who both featured on that documentary on Netflix that we talked about a little while ago, Behind the Curve. And of course in Logan Paul's thing, he duped Robbie Davidson really badly. But these are two fairly big players in the world of flat earth stuff. So if you want to go along and see what these guys have got to say for themselves, and I'd really be fascinated to know how many and what sort of people went along there. But anyway, I'm going to be here. So good luck with the conference, guys. Have fun doing your thing. Anyway, we need to talk to wrap up the competition, don't we? So how are we going for competition entries? We've got lots, have we, Jess? That's really good. Do you think, I'll just come over to you, Jess, do you think we've got enough to, are we ready to make the draw is the question I'm getting to?
Yeah. Okay,
so you've got them all in the astronaut helmet over there? Okay, do you want to bring that up the front and we'll see if we can find someone to do the draw for us. Do we have a volunteer to, okay, there you go. If you could pick a name out of the hat. So we have included everyone. So all of those of you who commented on live chat, Facebook, texted in and all the rest of it, I think we have included you all in there. So thanks very much for that. And if I have got this right, then the winner is someone who goes by the handle, The Channel. Is that right? Okay, and where did that come in, Jess? Can you remember if that was Facebook, YouTube, was it? So someone on the YouTube chat, let's see if I can find it here. Oh, look, it's a Star Trek one. Awesome, I love it. I like Star Trek because I like space action movies and stuff, and I really love space and science movies like Star Wars. Star Wars is good, isn't it? So up and down too, isn't it? It's like Star Trek. It has its moments, but thank you for that, and thank you for all the other comments. I'll go back through and have a good read of them. So now the channel, if you can just get hold of us somehow, ideally not through the live chat, but any of the avenues here, drop us an email or send us a text or something and tell us your address. And you have won this little box of natural gemstones for the budding geologist. So I think that's worth about $25 or something in our shop. So there you go. It's a beautiful little box of natural gemstones. So I hope you enjoy that. Is that everything we needed to talk about tonight? Let's see. Did anyone out there in the audience have anything else that they wanted to talk about or contribute tonight? Okay, look, thank you guys so much for coming along tonight. Thank you, Jess, over there for helping us out with all the other stuff. Jess is working very hard over there. She's been helping out with technical stuff as well as keeping an eye on me because my memory is a little bit sieve-like in these shows, and it really is helpful having Jess there. So I think with that, we are just about ready to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Remember, we need more subscribers on YouTube, we sure do. So if anything you can do to help spread the word, because what we need to do is we need to get a certain number of subscribers and views if we've got any hope of getting a sponsor long term for this show. So some of the things like the prizes and other things that we're doing, we really need a sponsor to help pay for them. So we need to get the subscribers up to do that first. So anything you can do to help out would be much appreciated. So with that, it's good night from the quick good night from everyone in the audience. Say good night, everyone. Right, yeah. So thank you so much for joining in, and we will see you again this same time next week.